They used to say the universe would end in silence, no explosions, no sudden darkness. Just a slow fading, one star after another until nothing remained but endless black. I didn't want to believe it, not when I was a child staring up at the night sky. Back then, the stars looked eternal, like guardians watching over us. But now, as I sit strapped into the bridge chair of the Eidolon, staring at the latest readings, I know the truth. The guardians are dying. Our sensors confirmed it weeks ago. More than 98% of all stellar activity had ceased. Galaxies were collapsing into pale ghosts, their arms empty and skeletal. Even black holes, once gluttons of the cosmos, were falling silent. The universe itself was running out of energy, starved of fuel. And yet, one star remained. It was impossible. We called it eternity's light, though no one knew what it truly was. A solitary blaze burning at the furthest edge of space, beyond the reach of normal matter, far past the galactic borders where even light seemed reluctant to travel. Astronomers had dismissed it as an error, a phantom signal caused by dying instruments. But the data was consistent, and the light unmistakable. Something still glowed at the end of everything. That was why I was here. That was why 5 of us had signed up for this mission. We were humanity's last explorers, chasing the final mystery the universe had to offer. Not for money, not for glory. There was no one left to care about such things. We did it because curiosity, that stubborn fire in our blood, refused to die with the stars. Trajectory stable, murmured Kiera, our navigator. Her voice was calm, but I caught the way her eyes lingered on the display as though staring too long might burn her. We're still locked onto the source. Distance, I asked. 73 days at current speed, she said. But the readings, they're strange. It's bright, yes, but it isn't radiating the way a star should. No solar winds, no fluctuations, just light. Just light. I shivered at the phrase. From the communications console, Idris gave a low chuckle. Maybe it's a lighthouse, he said, the last one. Someone making sure we don't get lost on our way out. Or a trap, muttered Soren, our engineer. He didn't look up from the mechanical core he was repairing, hand steady even as his words dripped suspicion. Out here, after everything we've seen, I wouldn't put it past the universe to set snares. You don't set traps when there's nothing left to catch, replied Aelith, our captain. Her voice always carried weight, the kind that silenced arguments before they could form. She was a woman forged from steel and long nights among the stars. Whatever this is, it's not for us. But we're going to see it anyway. Silence followed her words, broken only by the hum of the Eidolon's engines. I leaned back in my chair, watching the stars streak past on the forward viewport. No, not stars. Not anymore. Just faint ghosts of light, remnants of brilliance already gone. Every time I blinked, it seemed another pinprick vanished from the canvas. 73 days. That was all that stood between us and the final flame. I couldn't help but wonder if we'd survive the journey. Or worse, if we did survive, what would we find? Because deep down, I already knew this wasn't a star. Stars don't burn alone. Stars don't defy death. And stars don't watch you back. Space changes when you move too far from home. It isn't the silence. We'd grown used to that long ago. It isn't even the darkness, because darkness is always relative. No, what unsettles you out here is the weight, the sense that the fabric of reality itself has thinned, stretched, and begun to fray at the edges. 17 days into the journey, we began to feel it. At first, it was just the instruments. Kiara noticed the drift in our navigation array, the way distances stopped behaving. One moment, eternity's light seemed 70 million kilometers away. The next, only 65. Then back again, as though space was shrugging. Space-time anomalies. Idris muttered as he tapped his console. We knew we'd hit some turbulence. But this didn't feel like turbulence. It felt intentional, as if something ahead was bending reality to see if we would still follow. The dreams came next. Soren was the first to admit it. One morning, he appeared on the bridge, pale and restless, rubbing at his eyes as if the images were still etched there. I saw it, he whispered. The light. Not from outside, from inside, like I was in it. A whole landscape of fire and shadow, and voices, whispering. We stared at him in silence. Voices. That word hit something deep inside me. Captain Aelith dismissed it as stress, told him to rest. But when Kiera admitted the same the following day, and then Idris the day after, it became harder to ignore. I tried not to think about my own dreams. In mine, the light wasn't a star at all. It was an eye. And every time I blinked awake, I swore I still felt it looking at me. By day 25, the Eidolon itself began to suffer. Circuits failed for no reason, gravity shifted unpredictably, and the engines required constant recalibration. Soren worked tirelessly, cursing under his breath, his suspicion that the universe was setting traps now sounding less like paranoia and more like prophecy. "What if it doesn't want us here?" he said one night as we floated in the mess hall. The others had fallen into a tense silence, chewing their rations without appetite. "What if this thing at the edge isn't some beacon? What if it's a barrier? A warning?" Kira shook her head, stubbornness flickering in her dark eyes. "Warnings are meant to be read. I say that's all the more reason to see it for ourselves. Or die trying," Soren muttered. The captain said nothing, her gaze fixed on the viewport, where eternity's light shimmered faintly. It was growing brighter now, even visible to the naked eye. Too bright for the distance it was supposed to be. Some nights it looked less like a star and more like a candle flame, swaying as though moved by breath. On day 32, something impossible happened. We received a signal. At first, Idris thought it was a system glitch, a repeating tone buried deep in the static of cosmic radiation. But when he filtered it, the tone wasn't random at all. It pulsed in steady patterns, long, short, like a rhythm. Kiera leaned forward, her lips parting in awe. "That's structured. That's not noise. Not natural," Idris added, his voice tight with both excitement and fear. Captain Aelith crossed her arms. "You're saying something is transmitting. From the star. From the light," Idris corrected. The word hung in the air. We didn't know what to do. Half of us wanted to respond, half of us wanted to cut the comms altogether. But the decision was already made for us, because within hours, the signal changed. It wasn't just tones anymore, it was words. Not in any human language, not in any code we knew, but words nonetheless, fragments that wrapped around our minds in dreams, then echoed faintly through the speakers when no one was touching them. A language that didn't just reach us, it entered us. By day 36, none of us were sleeping without hearing it. Whispers, calling us closer. We had all seen stars. We had studied them, named them, mapped them since the first humans looked up at the sky. But nothing could have prepared us for this. On the 42nd day, eternity's light filled our viewports. It wasn't a star. At least not in the way stars are supposed to be. Its glow wasn't constant nor spherical. It bent and folded like liquid fire, stretching in shapes that no physics could explain. Sometimes it looked like a flame curled inward. Sometimes like a flower blooming in slow motion. Other times it pulsed as though it were alive, as though it had a heartbeat. Kiara pressed her face to the viewport, eyes wide. "That's not fusion. That's not plasma. That's something else." Idris's hands trembled on his console. "The readings don't make sense. There's energy, but it doesn't match any spectrum we know. It's radiating thought." Soren laughed, a sharp, desperate sound. "You hear yourself? You're saying that thing is thinking." But the silence that followed told us we were all considering it. Because by then, we weren't just seeing the light. We were hearing it. The whispers had grown stronger, no longer confined to our dreams or the static of our radios. They curled through the ship like smoke, soft but relentless. They didn't use words we could translate, yet each of us understood them in our own way. Echoes of promises, threats, questions. "Why have you come? Why do you burn so briefly, little sparks? Do you want to see what waits beyond?" The first night we saw it clearly, none of us slept. We sat in the mess hall, the light bleeding faintly through the reinforced windows, casting shifting shadows on the walls. The captain finally broke the silence. "It isn't a star," she said, her voice low. "It never was." Kiara looked at her. "Then what is it?" Elith's gaze lingered on the view outside. "A door." The word hit us harder than any scientific theory could. Soren scoffed, though his voice shook. "A door to what? You don't just call something like that a door." But deep down, I think we all knew she was right. The patterns of light weren't random. They pulsed with rhythm, with structure. They beckoned. Idris ran simulations, desperate to ground our fear in numbers. But every model failed. Distances collapsed into infinities, gravimetric readings looped like broken mirrors, and time itself stuttered in the data. No natural phenomenon behaved like this. Kiara whispered what we were all thinking. "It's not a star at all. It's something pretending to be one." The whispers grew sharper that night. Not angry, but urgent. Like voices calling children too close to a fire. I couldn't sleep. I walked the corridors of the Eidolon in the dim red emergency lighting. And then, in the hum of the engines, I heard it clearly. Not in my head, not in dreams but echoing against the walls. We have been waiting. I froze. The words weren't spoken aloud, but they were there, carved into the air itself. My chest tightened. Waiting. For what? For us. The next morning, Captain Aleth called a meeting. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the weight of the decision pressing down on her. "We came here to observe," she said. "But this thing isn't passive. It knows we're here. It's interacting with us. Maybe even inviting us." Soren slammed his fist against the table. "Inviting us to what? To step into a trap. To vanish like all the ghost ships we've heard about." Kiera leaned forward, stubborn fire in her gaze. "Or to make contact with something no human has ever known. Isn't that why we came? To see what waits at the edge of the universe." Silence fell. We all turned toward the captain. Finally, she nodded. "We'll approach, carefully." And so we did. The Eidolon crept forward, engines straining against forces we couldn't name. Space bent around us, stars in the distance warping into streaks of impossible color. The closer we came, the more the light moved. It wasn't a star. It wasn't even a thing. It was an opening. Through the shifting brilliance, we glimpsed something beyond. Shapes that looked like worlds folding in on themselves. Shadows of beings too vast to comprehend. A horizon that wasn't a horizon at all, but a wall of endless night. For a breathless moment, I felt as though I were staring at the underside of existence, as though reality itself had seams, and eternity's light was where they came undone. The whispers roared now, no longer faint but deafening, filling every chamber of the ship. My vision blurred, my skin prickled. They weren't just calling us closer. They were asking us to choose. To enter, or to turn back and never know. There was no sound in space, but as we drew nearer, the Eidolon seemed to groan like a wooden ship in a storm. Hull plates rattled. The lights flickered, and through the windows, eternity's light spread wider, folding open like a wound in the skin of the universe. No one spoke at first. What could we say? We weren't staring at a star anymore. We were staring into something beyond stars. Captain Aleth's voice finally cut through the silence. "Forward thrusters. Minimum power. Stay steady." Soren's jaw clenched as his hands danced across the controls. The ship obeyed, though every system screamed in protest. Idris's console spilled endless streams of impossible numbers. Gravity's fluctuating. Space-time isn't holding. It's like we're falling into two different directions at once. "Stay calm," the captain ordered, though her knuckles were white around the edge of her chair. As we inched closer, the whispers returned, but they weren't whispers anymore. They were voices. Clear, resonant, impossible. "Welcome, you have come far. Too far for fear to bind you. Step forward, little sparks." The door opens only once. My blood ran cold. This was no random phenomenon. Something was aware of us. Something was speaking. Kiera was trembling, but her eyes gleamed with awe. "We're the first to hear this." "The first. Do you understand what this means?" Soren snapped at her, his voice breaking. "It means we're about to die in a way no one will ever record." But then the ship lurched, as though yanked forward by an unseen hand. The view beyond the glass shifted, and suddenly there was no star, no light, only the threshold. It was not a circle, not a door in any shape we'd ever known. It was a fracture, jagged, infinite, glowing at the edges. A crack in reality wide enough to swallow us whole. Aleth's voice dropped to a whisper. "We're crossing." And we did. The moment we passed through, every sound on the ship ceased. Even the hum of the engines fell silent. For a breathless eternity, I thought I had gone deaf. Then, slowly, new sounds emerged, not mechanical, not physical. They were vibrations in the marrow of my bones, tones and chords that had no earthly equivalent. The universe we entered was not dark. It was not light either. It was something else. Colors we had no names for swirled across a horizon that bent upward and downward at once. Massive structures floated in the distance, shapes too large to be ships, too deliberate to be natural. Towers, cities, or beings themselves. Recording everything. Idris muttered, though his fingers shook against the keys. "Data doesn't make sense. Sensors can't lock onto distance. That thing." He pointed toward a spire of glimmering black in the distance. "It's either a kilometer away or a million light years." Kiera pressed closer to the glass. "It's beautiful." It was, and it was terrifying. The whispers returned, louder now, echoing through us all. "You step where none have stepped. You enter where none return. Do you seek to know what waits before eternity?" My hands trembled. I wanted to answer, to scream, to beg. But my mouth refused to move, as though the voice had pressed its will against my throat. Captain Aleth gritted her teeth. forcing words out. We came to understand. Show us. For a long moment, silence. Then the horizon shifted. The great spire of black light tilted, angling toward us. Soren's eyes widened. It's moving. It was. The structure wasn't a tower at all. It was alive. The thing unfolded in the distance, uncoiling like a serpent made of shadow and starlight. Its size was incomprehensible, stretching far beyond any sense of scale. As it moved, the entire fabric of this place bent, waves of reality rippling outward like water disturbed by a stone. And then it turned toward us. Every light on the ship died. The consoles went black. Even the emergency glow strips flickered out. We floated in pure nothing, suspended only by the dim reflection of the creature's gaze. And still, the voices spoke. We are what remains when stars die. We are the silence after the song. Why do you come, sparks that fade? What will you give to see what lies beyond the last star? The captain swallowed hard. Well, we give ourselves. No, Soren shouted. But it was too late. The spire creature shifted again, closer now, its presence pressing against our minds with unbearable weight. And for the first time, I felt something I never thought possible. The universe itself was watching us. I once thought the silence of deep space was terrifying. The absence of wind, of ocean, of birdsong left you exposed to an emptiness that gnawed at your soul. But this silence was different. It was not an absence. It was a presence, a weight, as though the very act of existing here pressed down upon us, judging. The thing before us, the vast, serpent-like spire of shifting shadow and starlight, gazed into our ship. No, not into the ship, into us, each of us, one by one. Kira whimpered and turned away. Idris gripped the console, his knuckles white. Soren muttered curses under his breath, his hands twitching as if desperate to grab the controls and flee. I could not move at all. My body belonged to it now. The voice returned, not through speakers, not through air, but directly inside our skulls. Do not fear. We are not your end. We are the truth behind endings. We are the last fire that flickers when all else collapses. Aelith forced her voice to remain steady. What are you? The entity rippled. Stars bent and vanished in the folds of its body. We are the echoes of creation. The architects abandoned us, and so we remain, guardians of what lies beyond the veil. When the first stars burned, we were born in their collapse. When the last fades, we will be the only flame that whispers. My skin prickled. Guardians, whispers. Had it lured us here, or were we chosen? Kira's awe finally broke free. She pressed her hand against the glass. You're not a star at all. You're older. Beyond matter. Beyond time. The voice hummed like 1,000 bells struck at once. This place is not your universe. It is the one between. Few pass through, fewer return. Idris's voice was hoarse. If others came here, where are they now? The creature seemed to ripple in amusement. They became what they sought. They shed their sparks and joined the silence. Would you do the same? The question hung in the air like a noose. Soren exploded. No! Enough of this madness! Captain, we need to leave. Now. If this thing controls this place, it can let us out the same way it dragged us in. Tell it to send us back. But the captain didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the being, her face pale, yet strangely resolute. We came here to seek knowledge, she said slowly. If this is knowledge, we cannot turn away. And my heart pounded. Was she willing to sacrifice us? For understanding. For history. The whispers grew sharper. You stand before the seam of eternity. Beyond lies what even your gods could not know. But passage is not given freely. To see what waits, you must give up what anchors you. What does that mean? I asked before I could stop myself. The voice called around me like smoke. Your names. Your time. Your memory, all that you cling to. Only then can you become more than sparks. Only then can you pass beyond the last star. The implications settled over us like ash. To go forward was to lose everything we were. To stay was to remain trapped here, perhaps forever. Soren stood, trembling with fury. This is a trick, a predator's trap. It wants to strip us down and feed on what we give. Don't you see? He turned to Aelith, desperate. Captain, please. We need to fight it, or find a way out, before we're raced. The captain's silence was answer enough. Kira broke it, her voice hushed and trembling with reverence. Maybe this is the next step. The universe is bigger than us. We've always known it. What if this is how civilizations transcend? Soren spat. Or how they die? The creature loomed closer, so immense it filled every viewport. Every shadow, its voice deepened, rumbling inside our bones. Decide to turn back is to forget. To step forward is to surrender. Choose, sparks of the dying flame. The consoles flickered back to life briefly. as though the entity allowed us one final choice. Navigation returned, coordinates scrambled but functional. We could attempt to force our way back through the threshold or surrender everything and step forward. Captain Alice's hand hovered over the controls. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes gleamed. "We didn't come all this way," she whispered, "to turn back." And she pressed the command that would change everything. The creature's body pulsed with radiant, terrible light. The whispers filled the ship, echoing in every molecule of our being. "Then you will see." Reality itself began to unspool. My memories flickered, faces blurred, names scattered like sand in the wind. I clutched at them desperately. My parents, my childhood, my own name. But they slipped further away. As the ship was consumed by the brilliance of eternity's light, I realized what the price truly was. We weren't just losing ourselves. We were becoming something else. At first, it was subtle. A hum beneath the skin, a vibration in the bones. The sensation of being stretched, as though my body and mind were threads pulled in opposite directions. Then the unraveling began. My name, Elias. It should have been simple, solid. But the moment I tried to hold it, the sound warped, echoing back at me with 1,000 variations. Eliar, Arius, Elian. Until none of them felt truly mine, I gasped, clutching at my head. Across the bridge, Kiera clung to her station, tears streaming down her face. I can't remember the names of my parents," she whispered. "I just see them fading." Captain Aelith stood tall, though her hands trembled. Her lips moved silently, repeating her name over and over like a mantra. Aelith, Aelith. But even she sounded unsure, as if her anchor was fraying. The being's voice filled the ship, vibrating through the hole through us. "Fear not. The loss is not an end. It is the first step of becoming." Idris slammed his fist against the console. His voice was guttural, primal. "You're killing us! You're tearing us apart!" The entity rippled, stars folding into its body. "You cling to sparks. We offer the flame beyond." And then the ship shifted. Or maybe it was the universe itself. Through the viewport, the last star pulsed like a great heartbeat, and from its light poured streams of something I could not name. Not matter, not energy, not time. Something older, something vast. It washed over us. I felt myself multiply. Pieces of thought, fragments of memory, splitting into shards and scattering in all directions. I was Elias and not Elias, human and not human, a child standing beneath the auroras of my homeworld, and a voice drifting across galaxies, timeless and unmoored. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed, absorbed, as if my throat no longer belonged only to me. Soren's rage cut through the chaos. His voice cracked as he shouted, "No more! I won't let it take me!" He bolted for the emergency console, trying to override the captain's command, trying to reroute power to propulsion. The moment his fingers touched the controls, the console burned white. His body arched, suspended in the air by invisible hands. His scream echoed, then fractured into silence. When he fell, his eyes were glassy. His chest rose and fell, but he no longer spoke, no longer fought. He simply stared blank and empty, as though the part of him that resisted had been erased. Kira sobbed, collapsing to her knees. "He's gone, he's not even here anymore." Aelith staggered forward, her knuckles white on the rail. "No," she whispered. "He's not gone, he's changed." But her voice betrayed doubt. Idris grabbed my arm, shaking me. His eyes were wild, unfocused. "Elias, listen to me. Fight it. Hold on to something. Anything." But his own words faltered. His pupils dilated, his jaw slackened, and for a heartbeat he looked like a stranger wearing his skin. The whispers grew louder. "You fear the death of sparks, but sparks must die for the fire to be born." The star outside expanded, swallowing our vision until there was nothing but light. My thoughts dissolved into it. Faces I had known blurred into streams of color. Voices I had loved scattered into harmonies of sound. I tried to hold on. To my name, to the idea of being human, to the laughter of my mother, the warmth of a sunlit ocean, the pride of wearing a uniform for the first time. But each memory was a thread, and the being was scissors. I collapsed against the console, breathing hard, though breath itself felt meaningless. What was breath, in a place without time or matter? I wasn't sure how long I drifted. Seconds, centuries, both, neither. When I lifted my head again, I saw them, my crew, and yet, not my crew. Ellie's body flickered, her outline blurred, as though her form was already loosening from flesh. Her eyes glowed faintly, the way stars do when glimpsed through mist. Kira floated above the floor, her hair drifting as though in water, her skin glowing with thin, luminous veins. She was whispering to herself, but the words were no longer in any human tongue. Idris twitched with every movement, as if his body lagged behind his intent. His voice came out in fragments, syllables echoing as though multiple versions of him spoke at once. And Soren just sat there breathing. Empty. A shell. I didn't know whether to scream or weep, because part of me envied him. At least he wasn't aware of what he was losing. The being pulsed brighter, filling every corner of the ship with its radiance. You are almost ready. One more step, and you will see what lies beyond eternity's veil. Almost ready, almost no longer human, and yet some part of me still clung to the tiniest ember. I was Elias, wasn't I? Light, endless, blinding light. It poured into the ship, into us, until there was no longer a distinction between inside and outside. The whole became translucent, the walls bending like glass about to shatter. Captain Aelith's voice broke through, trembling, but commanding. Steady yourselves. Whatever happens, we witness it together. But her words were already warped, stretched into 1,000 harmonics, some deep as thunder, some high as glass shards. Her voice wasn't only hers anymore. It belonged to something larger, echoing across unseen dimensions. Then the star, the last star before eternity, flared with a brilliance so immense it silenced even thought. And in that silence, the veil parted. We saw it. Not space as we had known it. Not void. Not galaxies. But an ocean of consciousness. Waves of thought, rising and falling, luminous currents made of memory and emotion. Countless voices swam within it, whispers of civilizations long gone, the laughter of children from worlds that had burned out millions of years ago, the songs of species that had never known language. They drifted together, luminous, eternal, forming constellations not of stars but of minds. And in that vast sea I understood, this was where everything ended. Not in cold, not in silence, but in convergence. Every thought, every being, drawn into one final tide. Kiara gasped, clutching at her head. Tears glowed on her cheeks, but her expression was rapture. It's beautiful, she whispered. They're all here, every soul, every dream. We don't die, we join. Her body flickered again, then steadied, her veins glowing brighter, her eyes like twin moons. She didn't fight it anymore. Idris stumbled forward, his voice cracking. No, it's a trap. Don't you see? This isn't freedom, it's annihilation. He turned to me, desperate. Elias, tell me you see it. Tell me you know this isn't right. But the truth caught in my throat, because part of me agreed with him. Yes, it was annihilation. The end of individuality, the end of the fragile flame called me. But was it also salvation? I thought of the worlds lost to war, the ashes of cities on forgotten planets, the children who starved beneath dying suns. In the face of such suffering, wasn't this ocean of unity a mercy? My doubt deepened. Aelith raised her arms, as if surrendering herself to the light. Her voice rang with awe. This is what lies beyond eternity's veil. This is what it's been preparing us for. The being's voice joined hers, but now it was no longer separate. It spoke through her. We are the final fire. The last star is but a door, and you are chosen to pass through it. The ship itself began to disintegrate, not with destruction but with transcendence. Panels turned to dust that glittered, dissolving into streams of radiant motes. The hum of engines ceased, replaced by a steady pulse, the heartbeat of the cosmic ocean itself. Soren stirred. For hours or centuries I no longer knew. He had been silent, emptied. But now he lifted his head. His eyes glowed faintly, his lips parted, and in a voice both alien and familiar, he whispered, They're calling me. They want me to remember who I was before I was born. Before he was born. I shivered. Because I understood. The ocean beyond the veil wasn't just the dead, it was before. The primordial mind that had existed before stars ignited, before matter congealed. It wasn't simply absorbing the living, it was reclaiming what had always been part of itself. Idris screamed then, raw and guttural. He tore at the remnants of his uniform, beating his fists against the dissolving floor. I won't be swallowed! I won't be erased! I am Mu! His voice cracked into silence as the light pressed in, wrapping around him like a cocoon. His outline shimmered unstable, flickering between flesh and flame. I wanted to reach for him, to pull him back. But my arms no longer obeyed. My body felt less like a body and more like a thought wearing temporary skin. And then I saw myself, not in reflection, not in memory, but scattered countless copies of me across the ocean. Elias as a child. Elias as an old man I had never lived to be. Elias laughing, crying, screaming, silent. Every possibility, every version. And I understood I had never been just one. I had always been many, the ocean whispered. Do not fear. The spark is not lost. It becomes flame. My chest tightened. My throat burned with unshed tears. because for the first time in my life I felt both infinite and utterly gone. Captain Aelith stepped fully into the radiance. Her form wavered, and then she was gone, not destroyed, absorbed. Her voice lingered, a final echo follow. The veil yawned wider, drawing us in. The last star flickered, and we began to cross. The veil pulsed like a living heartbeat, opening wider, pulling us toward it. The star, no, the door, was collapsing in upon itself, a radiant funnel drawing us into its core. For a moment, silence, then a voice, not Elith's, not the entity's, but something vaster, resonating inside every fragment of me. You may enter or you may turn away. But know this, the universe will not wait. I staggered, clutching at the dissolving floor that no longer felt solid. The choice pressed on me like gravity, crushing and liberating at the same time. Kiera was already stepping forward, her body more light than flesh. Her veins pulsed like rivers of starlight. She smiled, serene. This is it, she whispered. The answer to every question we've ever asked. Why we're here, where we go. I can feel them, all of them, waiting. Her eyes locked on mine. Elias, come with me. My heart tore, because Edris was still fighting. He stood at the opposite end of the chamber, half shrouded in light, half clinging to what remained of his human form. His face twisted with rage and despair, his body flickering like a broken signal. No, he roared, his voice ragged. This isn't salvation. It's consumption. We'll vanish. Don't you see? It's a lie. A beautiful, terrible lie. He pounded his fists against the wall, or what used to be a wall. His blows dissolved into glittering motes each time, swallowed instantly by the light. He was losing, and he knew it. But still, he fought. Soren, silent until now, stepped forward. His voice was calm, too calm, his face blank. I think Idris is wrong, but he's also right. We turned to him, startled. Soren's eyes glowed softly. The ocean doesn't erase us. It remembers us, every moment, every possibility. But we as individuals, he trailed off, searching for words. We dissolve into something larger. If you want eternity as yourself, you won't find it here. He turned to Idris. You won't survive as Idris, but you'll survive as part of something greater. Idris spat, his voice shaking. Then it's not survival at all. Kiera held out her hand to me. Elias, you can choose. That's the gift. Not the ocean, not the veil, the choice itself. Don't let fear make it for you. I froze. For all the light, for all the voices of ancient civilizations singing at the edge of the void, I still felt the weight of the human inside me. The boy who once stared at the stars through a cracked observatory dome. The man who chose this mission because he wanted answers. And now here was the answer. Aelith's final echo drifted through the chamber. Her voice stretched across eternity. Follow. But Idris's scream tore through me just as sharply. Resist! The veil rippled, impatient. Time, if time still existed here, was running out. Soren placed a hand on my shoulder. His touch was fading, more thought than flesh. You don't have to decide for us, decide for you. And then it struck me, the terrible truth. It wasn't about humanity. It wasn't about destiny. It was about me. The universe didn't care what I chose. The ocean would continue with or without me. Eternity would open with or without me. The star would burn, then vanish. The only thing that mattered was what I could live with or die with. Kira's hand trembled, outstretched. Her face was calm, luminous. She was already half gone, and yet more alive than I'd ever seen her. Idris's eyes burned with feral fire, a man clawing for himself against the tide. He was raw, brutal, real. Both paths were truth. Both were lies. My throat tightened. My voice cracked as I whispered, I don't know. The ocean answered, not unkindly, you will. The chamber shuddered. The last star flickered, its final heartbeat echoing through us all. The veil widened to its breaking point, demanding. Kiera stepped forward. Idris pulled back, and I took a single step, not forward, not back, just sideways, and the veil reacted. It bent, it noticed. The light around me warped, hesitating, as if the ocean itself was startled. For the first time, something outside its current. Something it had not expected. I gasped, my chest burning, as a sliver of shadow split the radiance. A path not forward into the ocean, not backward into the dying universe, but between, neither surrender nor resistance. A third way. The ocean whispered again, but now with something new in its voice. Curiosity. What are you? I stared into the crack of shadow between light and void. My heart thundered. Maybe I didn't have the answer, but I was about to find one. The crack in the veil pulsed, a fracture of shadow cutting across the ocean of light. It hummed with a rhythm unlike the others. Quieter, steadier, almost human. I stood at its threshold trembling. Behind me, Idris still clawed against dissolution, his roar breaking down into sobs. Ahead, Kira had nearly vanished into the sea of voices, her hand still stretched toward me, her eyes full of light. I whispered her name, and she smiled, a smile so achingly familiar it broke me. Not cosmic, not eternal, just hers. Elias, she breathed, her voice already fading. You don't have to follow me. Just remember me. Her outline dissolved one thread at a time until there was nothing left but a shimmer. The ocean carried her away. Or perhaps she had become the ocean. My knees buckled. A sob wrenched out of me. I didn't even know what choice I'd made anymore. The crack of shadow beckoned, soft and patient. Unlike the ocean, it demanded nothing. It simply waited. I stepped closer, and for a moment, silence fell. No voices, no eternity. Just me and the quiet. It felt human. And in that silence, memories returned. My mother's hand on my shoulder when I was a boy, pointing at the night sky. The laughter of my crew when we first launched into the stars. Kira's eyes, warm in the half-light of the ship, long before any of this. I understood then. The ocean offered eternity, but eternity without us. The shadow offered nothing, except the chance to carry memory. Fragile, impermanent, but mine. I turned back one last time. Idris was gone, whether he fought to the end or was finally swallowed. I couldn't tell. Only motes of him flickered in the light. Soren lingered longer, his body fading slow, his gaze steady on me. You've always been the one who carried us, he whispered. Charius still, and then he too was gone. I stood alone at the edge of forever. The last star flickered above, its fire guttering, its final heartbeat spent. The chamber shook, light and darkness weaving into one another, demanding an end. I closed my eyes, and I stepped into the shadow. For an instant, pain. Not cosmic dissolution, not transcendence, just raw, searing being. The pain of breath in a thin atmosphere, the ache of memory, the breaking weight of mortality. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on cracked stone beneath a starless sky. The ship was gone, the chamber gone, my crew gone, but above me, faint and flickering, was the last star, still burning, alone, like me. And in that faint light, I whispered a promise. I'll remember, for all of you, as long as I breathe. The star pulsed once, dim and tender, as if answering. And I knew eternity didn't need to claim me. Because eternity already lived in what we carried, in the fragile, fleeting miracle of memory. I sat there, beneath the final burning star, tears blurring my vision. The ocean roared somewhere beyond, waiting for another voyager. But for me, there was only this moment, this breath, this light, and it was enough.